So this is part two of the relationship videos. I'm heading straight on after the first one before I forget what I said in the first one and repeat myself too much. And I've come onto the theme of relationships coming apart. And sometimes you see that's necessary. And you can see it when you're doing a reading for people. And you don't really want to say it because it's not our job. It's not our job to say it. Or if we're asked, I might well say, yeah, there's a good chance here. But you can look at the issues. You look at the Mars and the Venus and well, actually, in someone's chart, traditionally, the sun is the long-term partner in the chart of a woman, and the moon is the partner in the chart, long-term partner in the chart of a man. I don't know how it works with gay people, and it's not always going to be like that because people are complex and who knows what the other person carries for them. But broadly speaking, it's that. And say if a woman's got a Pluto square sun transit coming up and there's trouble in her marriage, well, there's a good chance it may end. And it may need to end. It may be exactly what she needs to do because with a Pluto square sun transit, you're claiming something. You're claiming something that's your own, that someone else was carrying for you. And when you start to do that sort of claiming, well, you might need to physically walk to do that. Yeah. But the other person might allow it. You never know. I mean, that would be amazing if they're also on that kind of journey. Usually they're not. It's rare enough that one person wakes up. Two people waking up almost sounds like a conspiracy. um, American Beauty is a good film for this theme. Kevin Spacey, who's been to hell and back, who was accused of all sorts of things, put on the blacklist, had his money taken from him, was then found innocent. Who knows? And it was in this territory of what he'd done. But anyway, in American Beauty, he plays this guy, sort of middle age, midlife crisis, and he's left his wife. I think they're still living together. She's having an affair. And he's just doing what he wants. And he hasn't got a high paid job anymore. He's just working at McDonald's, something that's not too demanding, in a way that's humiliating, because he's come from the American dream. And they all think he's gone nuts because he's not in the American dream anymore. But you can see, really, it's the rest of them that have gone nuts because they still believe in that dream. They still think it's real. Well, of course, it's real to some extent, but there is a lot more to life than just this brittle presentation of outward success. Outward success is important. It's important to become good at what you do. It's important to be remunerated for what you do. It's important to be recognized for what you do, up to a point. And he's stepped outside. His values have changed. And his wife thinks he's gone nuts. And that is normal in relationships when one person changes. The other person thinks that the person who's changed has gone nuts. Because what happens in relationships, I talked about that editing of ourselves that you get when you're compelled to be with someone, that sort of compulsion. Yeah. Which I think in a way we need to trust. We need to trust that. Yeah. And take it down that path, which may well contain darkness in the end, but also the seeds of transformation are in there. So what happens is this unconscious deal. Yeah. On the surface, you get to be there, you get married because she's so this, she's so that. You're so this, you're so that, all in the other's eyes, and we just fit just perfectly. And we know we're meant to be together. All that, it's all light. But what you don't see is the shadow the unconscious deal. The man is really there because he wants a mother to take care of a little boy in him. Yeah? And the woman, because she finds the world big and threatening. She's very happy with the domestic side, maybe, but in her heart of hearts, she finds the world big and threatening. But the guy doesn't. Of course, you can't admit all of this. Yeah. And that was a bit stereotypical how I put it. But the reason things are often stereotypes is because they're true. And it's with Mars and Venus the case as well. And I'll come to that in a bit. So it might be that way around. It might be the other way around, or a complex of things. It could be all sorts of things. So the other person carries those things that we're not ready to deal with yet in ourselves, our shadow side. And it's when your shadow side starts to wake up that you start to develop, you start to individuate, you become separate from the herd, you start to find your own values. So, but it's a dark place we need to start with, the crack where the light gets in, all of that. So yeah, the other person carries this stuff, and it makes our relationship with them complex. We resent them for it. We also project our shadow side onto them. We project it. It's not just that they're carrying it for us. We see those things in them that we do not like. And so we nag them. And I heard someone say that nagging should be grounds for divorce, because really, if it turns into that, if you're continually critical of the other person, it keeps coming out, it's very wearing, it's very undermining, it's very destructive. It's not a good place to be. So what is needed is honesty in relationships, a deeper honesty. Maybe this is my central point in this session. It's that honest place. And then it can work when you can be open about all these things. But as I say, usually it's one person starts to open, like Kevin Spacey did in American Beauty, and the other person wants to carry on the same. And there's no judgment there. There's no rule saying they have to carry on. They have to change. They have to be open. They have to be honest about themselves. They don't have to be. They're trying to protect something in themselves. And when you no longer need to do that, you want to talk about it. You want to talk about these new places that you're now open to in yourself. And that can be a lonely place because the other person wants to shut it down and wants things to stay as normal. Because what happens is you create a reality between you. You don't even know you're doing it, but this is how things are and how they've been for the last 15, 20, even 30 years. It's reality. So if you start to change who you are threatening reality itself. And that's why the other person thinks you've gone nuts. They think you've gone crazy. And actually you haven't. You've just started to open up a bit. You've started to change a bit. And that's a wonderful thing. But it's a really difficult thing in the context of relationships. And so, I mean, you do need commitment in them. You do need the willingness to work through the difficult stuff. There's depth in that, depth of relationship. You've got a chance to have a deep relationship with someone over many years. What a privilege. Not everyone gets that. And I don't mean depth in the sense of two projections meeting. I mean depth in the sense of actually being able to talk about stuff, actually being able to be honest and work through that. And well, just the fact of talking about it, just the fact of being open is often enough. Being willing not to be right. Now that's deep. That can be as deep as the fear of death. The fear of being wrong. But actually it's not such a big deal. And you don't necessarily need to admit, I was wrong. You just don't say anything. It's tacit sometimes. The other person has taken what you said. Yeah? You don't need to hammer it until they admit it. Just their silence can be enough. It's a very difficult thing to admit you're wrong. So just leave it and just watch. It's a subtle dance, this thing. Well, we're ending the second one. Maybe I'll need to do a third one on this. I probably will.